Welcome for another episode of the Stress Control Summit. We are today with Julie Olson, and Julie is a triple board certified nutritionist, a functional medicine expert, an author, and has her own journey with autoimmune diseases and specializing in just autoimmune diseases, metabolic health, gut, the gut connection, and also well known for her expertise in hair loss. And that's the topic of today. We're going to speak about the connection between stress, sleep, and hair loss today. So thank you for being with us today. And before we go into the subject, you want to tell us a little bit, in what ways do you helping a client? What keeps you busy during the work? No?
Well, I'm actually writing a book now, so I'm not taking many clients, but I do have a DIY program that's got 4 modules, 4 videos, 17 guides, checklists. It's called Foundations. You can find it on my website. And I do have a quiz too that can really help. It's on my website. It's more of an assessment to see what type of root cause category type of hair loss you may have. Um, and yeah, so I'm really excited to be here today because I've figured out now 76 causes of hair loss, specifically female hair loss, which is more of a hidden epidemic. It's up to 50% worldwide now. But I put them into 5 root cause categories, and stress is one of them. So the others are hormones, toxins, digestion, which includes nutrition and gut health, and inflammatory. So inflammatory and stress. So those are the 5 root cause categories. And, I mean, acknowledging trauma and chronic stress is really the first step towards health because stress is a component of every single disease and health problem. And it steals your hair too. People don't realize that because it happens 3 to 6 months after your stress event.
Uh, let's get a little bit in the subject of stress. So what is stress? How does stress influence also hair growth and all these things related to that?
Well, I mean, the stress is not just one thing. There's different types of stress. There's physical stress, can be from over exercising, poor sleep, surgery, even childbirth and postpartum recovery, emotional stress, mental stress, grief, depression, conflicts, chemical stress from, say, processed foods, pesticides, alcohol, medications, environmental toxins, infectious and viral stress, bacterial infections. So all of these, Epstein-Barr virus, COVID, systemic infections with a prolonged immune response, environmental stress like heavy metals, mold exposure, UV radiation, water pollutants, nutritional stress, deficiencies in different nutrients. So each category is really a legitimate stressor. And what it does it for the hair is there are 3 cycles of hair growth, 3 phases. There's the antigen phase, the catagen, and the telogen. So, what these stressors can do, well, first of all, they cause systemic inflammation and the flood of those inflammatory cytokines, and that can miniaturize the follicles. But then it goes on and it skips the growth phases and prematurely puts it into the resting phase. So it ends up being in the telogen phase, which is the resting phase of hair growth. And you don't want to skip the other phases or your hair won't grow. And so you heard about the inflammatory cytokines, right, during the COVID. And so COVID was a huge trigger of hair loss, especially for women. And that was kind of the instigator of getting it more out in the open. But the way people are um, not dealing with chronic stress today, in whether it's in their environment or any of those other categories I talked about, it just doesn't cortisol cascade per se in your body and your scalp, which affects your hair growth. So, do you want me to kind of go through that and then and
Just to back up, you think, COVID was a thing that was kind of influencing our hair growth. It is something that kind of causing some inflammation and causing some reaction that influence that. And then also of what we normally call stress, it is emotional stress. That's a thing that also is influencing hair growth in putting hair in the resting phase.
yeah,
And
well, it also reduces your secretory immune, the IgA, the body's frontline immune defense, making it more vulnerable for infections, immune flares, and the kind of viral trigger hair loss seen in COVID-19. And again, when you throw in the blood sugar imbalances, so when cortisol is elevated, it causes blood sugar imbalances, insulin resistance. I mean, not always, but usually. And cortisol signals the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream, and that like destabilizes energy levels and fueling the systemic inflammation, right? And then it also can mess up your hormones and especially your thyroid hormones because T4 is supposed to be converted into active T3. But when you're in an elevated chronic stress state, that cortisol often inhibits that conversion and puts a brake on the metabolism of the hair cycle.
mm. So the thyroid hormones are influencing the hair growth then directly and
Yeah,
getting.
the growth and then the inflammation that comes along with it causes miniaturization. So it's important that you do all the things to just balance your stress. And I have a really good quote from this. Well, first of all, I mean, when your body believes it's running from a predator, what thinks it's running from a lion, producing hair is this last priority. I mean, our hair on our head is not a vital organ, yet needs an enormous amount of energy, ATP, it needs nutrients, and but our body is going to prioritize vital organs first, right?
Okay.
So and so many people think their body doesn't know any difference whether you're running from a bear or it's some chronic stress that you just have going on. I mean, that was part of my problem when I lost my hair when I was 38 years old. Oh, almost lost my hair. I was just going 24/7 and just working through my fatigue and not listening to my body and stressed and just thought I was working hard and staying out late and
Yeah.
yeah, so
A question that many people might have, when you're getting into a really heavy stress load, how long does it normally take for some symptoms showing up in the hair?
it takes when you're in a heavy when you have major stress or even a trauma, once you get that under control, it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to have that hair loss take place. That's why it's hard to track it back. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and there's actually other types of stress related hair loss. So the biggest one is telogen effluvium, and they call it the COVID shed or chronic telogen effluvium. And but
Mhm.
that is, that's the one, Martin, that you see 3 to 6 months later. But like on your autoimmune summit, there's types of autoimmune types of hair loss, but stress also plays a role in that because it's upregulating the pro-inflammatory cytokines. That type of hair loss is called alopecia areata. That's the most common type of autoimmune hair loss where the immune system actually attacks the hair follicles.
Uh,
And then,
Quite quickly. Yeah.
yeah, it attacks the hair follicles. And that one is not as easy to recover from, whereas telogen effluvium since it is stress related, it's easier to grow back your hair. But
Mhm.
then also androgenetic alopecia is accelerated by stress, and that's because stress is known to accelerate the miniaturization process in this type of hair loss, driving hormonal imbalances that increase the DHT activity in the at the follicle level.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple others. Trichotillomania is a stress-driven behavioral condition involving the compulsive urge to pull hair from the scalp and even like eyebrows and other areas. It's classified as a obsessive compulsive behavior that again is stress driven. And then there's one last one, and that's traction alopecia. And that's from stress tight hairstyles, like those tight braids, those tight ponytails, extensions. Extensions make it worse because they pull on your hair follicles. So you have those tight braids with those extensions that some extensions that you weave into your hair and you only take out like every, I guess I haven't done it, but I think there's some you that they weave into your hair and you wash your hair with it and you only take out every 4 or 5 months. If that really pulls on your hair follicles and then you combine it with systemic stress and no wonder women because they hide it with those hair extensions. And then the stress on top of it, I mean, yeah.
Yes. All right. So for having a healthy hair, you need to take care of your stress. You need to take care of your health. You need to have good nutrition for your hair, and that will make the difference. Hmm?
Yeah, and there's interesting quote I found from Dr. Robert Lustig. He's said that systemic constant chronic stress with the constant cortisol destroys the protein metabolically and depletes ATP. So this is a really interesting quote for your entire summit because, again, I mean, if our chronic stress secretes that constant cortisol and then destroys protein metabolically and depletes ATP. Now, for my world, hair loss and hair that I specialize in, our hair is made of protein. They basically call it keratin. So if you're constantly stressed with that elevated cortisol, it's depleting your protein. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, Martin, our scalp is very active metabolically and it needs an enormous amount of ATP and energy from the mitochondria, that Krebs cycle, and all this. And when we're stressed, again, it's going to just put that to our vital organs. And this doctor's saying it depletes that ATP that we need for everything in our bodies. So it's like
Mhm.
a vicious cycle. It's, no wonder so many people are ill today because even cancer, stress plays a role. It's,
Mhm.
yeah, it's really,
ATP is the energy, that's important for anything in life.
yeah, for sure.
Yes. Do you want to speak a little bit about sleep? How does sleep influence that entire cycle?
Sure. So that's a huge factor. Again, not only for hair, but health. But what it does to hair is it impairs the body's ability to regulate cortisol, right? Like we've been talking about. And it increases systemic inflammation, suppresses immune function, and disrupts the hormonal signaling that governs the hair growth cycle. So, sleep deprivation also inhibits the follicle regeneration that should be occurring during rest, the same regeneration that cortisol is already suppressing. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with night nurses and even shift workers. They can do everything right, but their circadian rhythm is so off. It's not it's not meant for the human. It's the human's supposed to be awake during the day with the sunlight and sleep at night. So it affects the follicle stem cell activity when that rhythm's off. So your follicles don't receive the biological cues needed to cycle normally. Yeah. So, I mean, and getting, you need like 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I think a lot of people get on okay with less. I certainly used to. Yeah. I mean, and then stress is also going to affect the gut inflammation hair connection because cortisol inhibits the production of the intestinal mucus, the protective lining that keeps the gut wall. It's interesting. If you lined up the gut wall, mucosal lining of your gut, which is a really thin layer, it's like a centimeter or something. But if you laid it out, of it would fill a football field. So that
Yeah.
gut lining is so important because it's our defense. And cortisol inhibits that. It breaks it down so that we don't have that strong gut barrier. And then you end up with, leaky gut and these cytokines and pro-inflammatory, yeah, cytokines and inflammation. And that reaches the scalp. It damages the follicle cells and disrupts that hair cycle. It's the same, it's similar as everything else I've been talking about. Our gut health is so important, especially getting those key nutrients. Because again, Martin, like I kind of been going on about that, we have nutrients not only, that our body needs to function, but it's going to get to our scalp, our hair last. And so, yeah, so if we're not consuming enough or if we're so stressed that they're cycling so fast, it down regulates everything. And especially like magnesium is one of the first to go. And low magnesium impairs the enzymatic process tied to glucose metabolism. And, magnesium is foundational to hair health, independent of its role in stress regulation. Stress is going to steal it. And the same with vitamin C. Vitamin C is one of the first to go. You hear about smokers that some get like because smoking depletes vitamin C big time. And then the B vitamins are huge and they really help with stress pathways, especially that govern serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. Clinical studies show that B vitamins support mood regulation and metabolic processes, not just for our body, but for our hair health, especially B7, the biotin, B9, folate, and B12. Yeah, so.
When we are under stress, we need to be extra cautious to have a good vitamin supply in our foods and everything else.
Yeah, but that's just the thing, Martin. I mean, people, even women have come to me and they eat great, they're taking supplements, but once I start doing testing, they're not absorbing.
Hmm.
And that's because they're stressed. And our body doesn't know if we're running from a bear or, whatever is going on in their life. So they're not absorbing like they should because they are in this chronic stress state.
Yes, so we need to have some tools and know how to take care of our stress. That's really something that is going to be essential, to regulate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, taking those nutrients is important and, eating well. I mean, I would say for stress, there's different types of magnesium. I would say magnesium glycinate. And then I would say a good B complex with some extra B6. And then I would say vitamin C. So vitamin C not only helps modulate stress, it also builds collagen that is important for our hair health and skin health. But it is depleted with stress. So some of those are needed to just balance out what's happening to our body when we're
Mhm.
under that constant.
Yes, and you have mentioned leaky gut. When stress is causing leaky gut, then inflammation is really, systemic, is really getting terrible in our system, doing some things they're entering things in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, no? And that is causing lots of problems. No?
Yeah. Do you want, can I mention real quick a study done at Harvard about mice? It's about mice and stress.
All right.
Okay. So it was Dr. Yang Chang Hoon's laboratory at Harvard. And what they did is these mice were exposed to mild but prolonged stress and showed elevated corti, corticosterone, which is the rodent equivalent to human cortisol. So what happened is it extended the telogen phase and reduced their hair growth. But the critical finding is the cortisol blocked the dermal papillae from secreting GAS6, which is a signaling molecule that activates hair follicle stem cells. So without this GAS6, the stem cells could not receive the signal to grow, and all because of the stress. And the follicle stayed dormant. So it, yeah, and people, when they're stressed, they don't feel like exercising. That's another thing. You need circulation to the scalp, and people, probably not so much in your side of the world, Martin, but here in America, people are really tied to their phones and their computers and a lot of sitting around. And
Oh, yeah.
exercise increases that dopamine and serotonin. It's really important for stress. I mean, and even just walking once or twice a day is going to be much better than nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting to see, all these connections going on here. No? And, when you see some hair loss going on, have a look, think about it. It might be a sign that you have maybe a little bit too much stress.
yeah, but remember that stressor happened 3 to 6 months prior to your hair
Prior.
falling out.
All right. Yes. So thank you for our conversation today. Do you have any final tips? Do you have any final words for our listeners today?
Just build a consistent sleep routine, identify your stressors, incorporate mind body practices. Breath works great, progressive muscle relaxation. They really have been scientifically shown to reduce inflammatory markers. And then address your gut stress. Replenish with those nutrients I talked about, especially the magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin Z. Even zinc is really helpful too. And, setting boundaries against your stressors, against your digital consumption, your scheduling overload, say no to things, resolve your personal conflicts, what have you. The bottom line is stress doesn't cause hair loss for everybody, but it matters for every person because dismissing chronic stress is for health and hair loss really is an oversight because that gap undermines other interventions you might try. And really, COVID highlighted this globally. Millions watched their hair fall out 3 to 6 months later. And those with long COVID now are still experiencing the hair loss. So it just causes that up regulation. I'm not going to get into the COVID, but just an example of the stress induced hair loss that we can avoid if we take measures every day to manage our stress. And I think that's what your summit's all about. So
Yes. All right. So I think the message today, just take it serious. If you see some symptoms, you need to take some action to control your stress because it can cause quite a bit of havoc in our health. Yes, for our listeners today, you have also a gift for them.
I do. So I have the roadmap and it's the roadmap to healthy hair, and it's a great guide, and it has some exercises for you to do. Actually, part of it is to identify your stress, but it also has some anti-inflammatory recipes and meal plans, and and then it introduces my trademark protocol called the Healthy Hair Fix. It's a 5-step process to grow back your hair naturally. And there's some other goodies in there. It's definitely worth a look at.
Yes.
And be sure to take the quiz. There's a link to my quiz in the roadmap. So be sure to take that quiz because it'll rank those 5 root cause categories that I talked about at the beginning that I'm sure other people are talking about on your summit because, stress, they're all interrelated. Stress causes chronic inflammation, right? Stress can be brought on by toxins. Stress can be brought on by digestive gut imbalances, nutrient depletions. Stress can be brought on, well, those are the categories. So,
Hmm.
um, oh, stress brings hormonal imbalance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the hormones, toxins, digestive, and chronic inflammation, those are, yeah, it all.
Mhm. Yes. So yeah, it's really an interesting resource. Check it out here down. You find the link and just click it there and you get it in your inbox. And thank you for being with us today. It
Sure.
was quite
Thank you.
a conversation. And all our listeners, just encourage you come back for the next talks. We have a lineup of interesting speakers here at the summit. And I hope to see you in the next talk.
All right, Martin. Thanks again. Good to see you.